I thought I just needed a lathe and some turning tools to make stuff, but I was wrong. Classic Thomas. I'll go through every item you'll need to turn your first project and how much it all cost me. Every single dime. I'll also reveal how you can save a lot of money. Like a lot. Throughout this video, I'm gonna show you how I turn a bowl from start to finish. Literally from plain boards to a bowl. I am no expert on the lathe, but I do have a blast turning square objects round. I originally wanted to buy a lathe to make various types of wooden bowls. If you don't know, there are basically two types of things you can make on a lathe. Bowls and spindles. That is a very simplified explanation. When I say bowls, I mean anything you turn with a grain orientation is up and down when you put it on the lathe. Also called side grain orientation. And that's what I'm turning here. This includes bowls, plates, platters, trays, small planters, and various other things that I'm not thinking of at the moment. Spindles, on the other hand, is when the grain is going left to right when you put it on the lathe. This is where you mount it using the end grain. This generally includes taller items, candle holders, vases, not vases, baseball bats, pepper grinders, etc., etc. I wanted to start turning bowl type things, and so I got my lathe and some turning tools, but I still couldn't make things. Like I literally did not have enough equipment. I had done enough research to know I needed more than just these things, but I didn't fully know just how many more things I would need to buy, and that it would literally cost me thousands of dollars. But don't worry, I'll show you how it doesn't need to cost you that much. I got the Jet 1221 lathe. It allows 12 inches up and down and 21 inches right to left. Pretty solid. This is more of a mid-sized lathe. There are smaller lathes called mini lathes that are more suited for turning smaller items, pens, small dishes, trays, small candle holders, things like that. But I had heard the lack of power could be frustrating at times. There are also much bigger lathes that come with a stand, but those are too rich for my blood at this time. And I didn't want to get a bigger lathe because I didn't really know if I liked this type of woodworking yet. I bought this one new, not used, for one main reason. I didn't want to risk the chance that it wouldn't work properly and I'd have to tinker with it to get it to work well. That's the risk with buying used. But the big pro is that used ones are generally cheaper and sometimes significantly cheaper. This one has worked great. The variable speed dial is so freaking cool. Hey, I didn't even say anything bad, I said freaking. You guys bleep me and I didn't even swear. Side note, I generally buy based on value. I typically don't buy the cheapest or the most expensive tool. I will buy the item with the best value. Typically, this means the things I buy are in the middle price range. So I just realized after I trued up the side of the bowl blank that I didn't have my tailstock connected at all. It's been a little while since I've turned anything, and having the tailstock up against your workpiece makes it just a lot more stable and safer, especially with a big bowl like this. I don't claim to be an expert, but if you're turning, I would highly suggest that for the first part, you connect the tailstock to your bowl blank. Some of the tools I bought for this lathe were top of the line and pretty dang expensive, but I had good reason for that. We'll get to those reasons in a little bit. The cool thing about buying new is typically the lathe will come with a few things. Mine came with a faceplate to initially attach the wood to the lathe, but we'll go over how this is not the only attachment accessory you'll need to complete a project. First things first, safety glasses, dust mask, and face shield. Oh, you don't think safety glasses and a face shield are necessary? Sorry, that was a little aggressive. Let's ask my friend Sebastian what he thinks. Let me be clear, when this happens, it doesn't necessarily mean the person using the lathe did anything wrong. This can happen to new turners or very experienced turners who have been doing it for years. Sebastian is fine, by the way. So yes, you need a face shield, and why not put those safety glasses underneath as well? I decided to go with a mix of prices for my bowl turning tools. For my bowl gouges, which are the tools I use the most when turning a bowl, I went with more expensive ones because the steel is much harder. They will stay sharper longer, so I won't need to sharpen them nearly as much, and the lifespan of the gouges will be a lot longer. For the other ones, I went with the same brand, but they are high-speed steel. Still good, but not quite as hard. But I don't use these as much during a project, so I didn't feel like spending more. If you're just going to be turning bowls and other side grain items, you'll just need bowl turning tools. But if you're going to be turning spindles, you'll need a whole nother set of tools. Because of the grain orientation, there's almost no crossover. This adds another expense. The good news, you don't have to turn both things. And I'll show you how to spend less on these. The exterior of this bowl is coming together pretty nicely, but I'm not that happy with the bottom of it. It's just not quite as round as I want it to be, but I think there's an easy fix. It's just a little too straight right here, and I would like it to be rounder. So I think if I take off this foot, I'll have easier access to the bottom part here, and it'll make it look a little nicer and give it that rounded shape I'm going for. And in the process, I'll turn this foot into a smaller tenon. It'll make sense when I start working, hopefully. I did go ahead and buy spindle turning tools for when I turn spindles. So you're turning and having a blast, but your gouge isn't cutting very well anymore. You need a way to sharpen. Let's go to the grinder! A slow speed grinder to be specific. But even when you buy this, you still can't sharpen. A newbie like me just doesn't have the skill to freehand sharpen and still keep the right angle on my gouge and other turning tools. After talking to a bunch of experienced turners on the World Wide Web, I decided to go with this one-way Wolverine sharpening system with the VariGrind attachment for my gouges. It just works. This puts my tools in the proper sharpening position. I also got a new 180 grit CBN wheel, which is so hard it won't need to be replaced for a very long time. Maybe ever, depending on how often it gets used. But this is not necessary. You can just go with the wheels your grinder comes with. But the highest grit that my grinder came with was 120, and I had heard that 180 is a great grit for sharpening. Okay, let's pause for a second. I almost forgot. How the heck do I even know how to use the lathe? Like, how do I cut the wood to make something? I was literally starting from zero. And yeah, I could have watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I did, but I just felt like I wasn't getting the value that I needed. And I wanted to get down to the nitty and the gritty of how to actually turn a project start to finish. So I bought a course from Kent. Not that Kent. There we go. It was great. It taught me everything I needed to know about using the lathe and making my first project. This is not sponsored, by the way, and I paid full price for the course. It was just really helpful. The only issue I have is his company name is a little confusing. Like, what does he even specialize in anyways? Abrupt stop, I know, but I had to show you this. I just thought these shavings were so cool. I've never created shavings like this before, and those cuts were really nice. Again, usually all my cuts look just sort of dusty like this, but these are really satisfying shavings I was making just then. So of course I had to stop the video to show you these glamorous shavings. I mean, look at that. That's pretty cool. Unfortunately, this next accessory generally does not come with the lathe unless you buy one used and the person throws one in because they're nice. That's where Charles comes in, but we're pretty close, so I call him Chuck. You need a Chuck. I decided to go with this one from Nova because it has multiple sets of jaws that are different sizes. This variety in sizes allows you to attach different sized items to the chuck. But you technically don't need different sized jaws. In the long run, I did think this would be cheaper than having to buy different chucks. Something to think about. Look at that. We have something that somewhat resembles a bowl. Okay. Okay, this is an absolute mess. So I'm going to sweep this up, and in the next scene, this should be nice and clean. I'm a big fan of showing my mistakes, and one thing to watch out for is things can break off the lathe, and it can be scary. Not for me, of course, because I don't get scared, but for like other people. This happened because one, this was a plywood project, so the wood wasn't quite as dense as normal hardwood. But the main reason it broke off was because it wasn't spinning perfectly true, and the vibration caused it to break off. I don't think this was the lathe's fault, because this is literally the only time this has happened. I think it had to do with this being a patterned plywood project with a lot of glue ups. I really feel like I can let out my creative side on this tool. There's no wrong shape really. So a little bit about me. I'm super slow at building, well, anything really. And that was actually one of the big reasons that I got the lathe. The thought of being able to make something start to finish in one day was very exciting. Let's be real though, I'm not quite good enough to make things in one day yet. It takes more like 2 to 3, but that's still a lot better than 2 to 3 weeks, which is about the minimum it takes me to finish a furniture project. If you buy a smaller lathe like this one, you'll need to put it on some sort of a cabinet or stand. The smaller ones generally don't come with one. Luckily, I already had this cabinet, I just had to modify it a little bit. I've been slacking on making a more suitable cabinet for the lathe. I want to, but I just haven't prioritized it yet. I make plans for workshop furniture, so if you want me to make plans for some sort of a lathe stand with storage, let me know in the comments below. If enough people comment, it just may be the thing I need to kick my butt into gear. If you want to check out the very detailed workshop furniture plans I do have, just go to my website and I'll put a link to my website in the description below. You can get a pretty smooth finish with just your gouges if you have a lot of experience. So I've heard. But I do not have set experience, so I need to sand a little bit. The problem is the random orbital sander is just too big and hand sanding would take way too long. For a beginner like me, I need to sand kind of a lot. During my very first project, I pretty much used my sander like another gouge, and it helped get rid of a lot of high spots. The easiest way to sand a lathe project, especially a bowl, is with a drill attachment. I use the 2-incher as opposed to the 3-incher on most of my projects because I found it works a little better on smaller items. I'm working my way up through the grits like any other project, and this thing is coming together nicely. But the colors aren't popping yet, and there's no protection on this bad boy. That's where the finish comes into play. But what finish to use? We'll get to the grand total of how much all these lathe tools and accessories cost me in a little bit, but I did not include the cost of the finish because you'll need that for any woodworking project you do. I'm using Osmo wood wax finish for this bowl, but it's definitely not the only finish you can use. Watch YouTube videos, test products, and find out what finish is gonna work best for you. I'm definitely not a finish expert. I just like how this finish has more natural ingredients than others. And if the bowl is going to be used for food, natural is nice. Okay, let's talk money. I will give you every cent that I spent. I mean, I won't give it to you, but I'll tell you how much I spent. For everything I bought to make my very first project on the lathe, I spent a grand total of $2,625 American. I had actually forgotten that I spent that much until I started making this video. That might not be a lot for the coolest player on the 49ers, but it's a lot for me. George, if you're watching this, and why wouldn't he be watching his favorite YouTube channel? Hi, I think you're really cool. Now, I have researched every item on this list and have either found a viable used option or a cheaper new option. Some things I don't recommend buying used. It's probably not a good idea to buy a used dust mask. I'm also not going to just tell you to buy everything used because I'm not going to expect that you'll be able to find every item used in your area. So a lot of the items are cheaper new stuff. Okay, some ways to find all the lathe tools and accessories cheaper. Garage sales, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, OfferUp, Craigslist, just to name a few. And checking these places regularly because new things pop up all the time. I generally prefer to buy newer items, but some of those big ticket items like the lathe and the grinder, you'll save a lot of money if you can find them used. Here is the list. Wait, that's not right. Why do you look so familiar? Here is the list. It might actually be better to put it on the screen. Here is the list. I will have a list of all of the tools that I bought as well as this cheaper list in the description below. If you just want to try this out to see if you like it, it doesn't hurt to go with cheaper tools. Full transparency, I have not personally used the tools and accessories on the cheaper list, so buy at your own risk. All the tools that I bought I have used and they work well. You don't have to pay top dollar to make awesome stuff. I know people with very inexpensive lathes and tools who have been making great stuff for years. If you want to spend a little more like I did, that's fine too. Chances are you're an adult watching this, which means you can do whatever you want. This is just information for you to do with it as you will.
Have you even used your spindle turning tools?
No, not yet.
How much did they cost?
$300.
So you spent $300 on tools you have never used and it's been 11 months?
Yes. Do not make me laugh, or otherwise we'll be here all night. Why are you laughing so hard?
Have you used your spindle turning tools?
Okay. I have to remember my lines.
I say, have you even used?
What does it say there?
Have you used?
Yeah, improvise. And then I say, no, not yet. And then maybe this is our first scene in one of my videos. This has to go well. Oh my God. You're laughing. I want to include this scene, but it's not, it doesn't look good.
You're the one laughing.
Maybe your line was good. I don't know why you're laughing. Oh God. If you're watching this video, chances are you're in a smaller workshop, maybe in a garage. I did a poll a little while ago and the vast majority of my audience works in a garage like I do. Well, if you do, here's a video where I talk in depth about the space-saving hardware that I use for my workshop furniture. I think you'll get a lot of value out of it. I'll see you over there, and remember, be kind, be awesome. Okay. That's a lathe.
Yeah.
Can you say lathe?